Welcome. Today we are reviewing Sagamore's 9-year-old release. Is it better than last year's 8? Let's find out. Welcome back to the Bourbon Retriever. My name is Chris Harris, and today we are reviewing Sagamore's latest release, their 9-year-old rye. The 9-year-old rye is not their own distillate, it is MGP sourced. It's coming in at roughly 112 proof. I think it's 112.6. So when I was doing some research for the tasting and the review today, I really couldn't find much out there. There's nothing about this bottle on the Sagamore's website. It makes me wonder if this was actually released a little early. Montgomery County, one of the counties around DC, their liquor store, it's a county-run system, dropped a couple bottles in their liquor store and online inventory system. I didn't get myself a bottle, but a good friend of the channel provided me a sample, and that is how I'm doing the review today. The 9-year juice is similar to the 8-year juice, just aged a little longer. The proof points come in at very similar. Last year's was 111, this year's is 112. So Sagamore does distill a lot of their own juice. However, both the 8 and the 9-year, the older aged products, is MGP sourced. So with the background out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into this and see how it tastes. Cheers. So based on the aroma alone, I don't know if I'd actually guess that this is a rye. I'm getting a lot of traditional bourbon notes, the caramel, the vanilla, and then the oak is actually pretty pronounced on this compared to my memory from the 8-year. We're gonna do a side-by-side later just to compare them a little bit for you out there who have tried the 8 and just see how much different is the 9. But yeah, there's almost no spice coming through on the aroma, and it's just a ton of sweetness. So let's see if it transitions to the palate. So after the first sip, the rye notes are definitely coming forward. You can tell this is a rye. It is 95.5 MGP recipe for those out there wondering. Now, I'm personally not the biggest rye fan. I particularly actually didn't enjoy the 8-year. It came in last place in my best of the year blind for ryes last year. Traditionally, they're just too peppery for me. But this one actually has a nice balance. You can definitely tell there's rye on the back end there, but it's almost more of like a minty rye with a little bit of just tingling on your tongue, maybe like some black pepper, spice coming back there, maybe like pop rocks almost. I'm getting that sensation of just popping on the back of my tongue. The thing I'm digging most about this pour right now though is the butteriness. That is my first impression when I put it on my palate. It's just a nice creamy, has a nice viscosity to it too. And then around the mid palate after that creamy buttery start, the oak notes start coming in a little bit, getting the more prominent notes there, and then the back end is when it shifts into that mini, more of a rye sensation you'd get. But yeah, overall I'm really actually enjoying this pour. It's coming out much better than my expectations for it, but let's go ahead and jump into the 8-year and just see how it compares to the 9. It's a little bit of a heavy pour, but I can always just pour into a sample jar. Let's go ahead and jump into the aroma. Okay, on the nose on this, you can definitely tell it's a rye, but the sweetness that I'm getting is maybe more like an apricot note to it also with there. I'm definitely getting more pungent notes out of the 8-year. I don't know if it's because I poured so much more into it. Let me pour a little bit more into the 9-year just to put them on a little bit of a level playing field here. Now, even after pouring more into the 9 to make it a little more comparable, the 8 definitely is more prominent. The apricot note is just jumping out, but I don't know if that's because the 9-year is a fresh crack and the 8-year has been sitting open for a year or so. I noticed for me, the aroma is the thing that changes most on a whiskey after it sits open for a bit. So that could just be that has more airtime to it. So I'd say on the aroma, I would actually prefer the 8-year more than the 9. Just because I'm actually really digging that apricot note. It's more pungent and it's a flavor I enjoy. Whereas the 9, I'm just getting a lot of that vanilla caramel sweetness. Nothing wrong with it, but I just enjoy that unique aspect of the 8-year I'm getting right now. All right, let's go on to the taste of the 8-year. Okay, the most prominent note on the 8-year is the fruit sweetness to it. It is like on the aroma on the palate, it is very overpowering. And then there's actually the rye is a lot more prominent also. So if you're not that big into ryes, maybe get the 9-year over the 8, but you can definitely get the ryeness out of the 8. But some people, the reason you buy a rye is because you actually want the rye notes. If you want something that tastes like a bourbon, just go and buy a bourbon instead. But between the 2 and the 8 and the 9, the 8 definitely, you can tell, is more of a rye. Probably one of the things I'm most shocked about this tasting between 2 is the oak notes. I thought a year probably wouldn't make that much of a difference, but the 9 to me has a much more stronger oak profile than the 8. Again, I thought there'd be a little more oak, but it seems like there's more than a year difference on the oak notes between the 2. Okay, after I've given my initial impressions on this bottle, I'm gonna read the notes that they say you should be getting on the 8. I don't have the 9, so I can't read those notes. But on the 8 here, you're supposed to get candied ginger, sweet orange, molasses, and nut brittle. I always like reading notes to help me taste it. I don't really like to do it after the first tasting though, because a lot of times when you drink a whiskey and someone says something, you can make those connections when they're not really there. So I'm gonna go back in after reading that and see if I catch any of it. I think of those notes, the molasses is the one I'm getting the most of. Now they say that, I do agree with that note. The others, maybe orange is the note instead of apricot. I still think it personally it's an apricot, but maybe some people would say it's orange. Nut brittle, I don't know. When I think of nut brittle, I more think of like Jim Beam, something along those lines, especially Booker's. But I'm not necessarily getting that note in this personally. Okay, before I get into my final review of the bottle and the comparison between the 2, if you're enjoying this content, hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss any content going forward. In addition, if you want to become a part of the community I'm growing here, I have a Discord and a Patreon. Feel free to jump over there if you want to come and join us. Okay, so my final thoughts on the 9-year and then also how it compares to the 8-year. The 9-year here is coming in at $75. I don't know if that is actually the price it's supposed to be, or if Mocha just made a slip up and they charged the price from the 8-year last year. But this bottle was going for $75 in the local area right now. For $75, I think this is a buy. I really would love to see how this is after the bottle's been open for a little bit. This is a fresh crack. And I think this would change after it's been sitting open for a while. For instance, this 8-year, I really did not like it when it first opened. It was just all the things I just despise in rye bottles. But actually sitting here today, this is the first time I've had it in 6 months maybe, and it is drastically different than when I had it last year in the top 10 ryes. But for me personally, if you find this bottle for $75, I think it is a buy. It comes in under the $10 a year age statement, being at 9 years and only being $75. And I wouldn't say that this is a must buy. This isn't one that you need to go out crazy hunting for. It's not one that you should be paying a secondary for or buying backups of. I think it is overall a great pour, but not something that is exceptional by any means. But it's definitely a bottle that I want to own, and I want to see how it develops over time with more air be going in the bottle and just see how it changes. But yeah, I almost forgot how does it compare to the 8. I think this is drastically different than the 8. You can tell me these are almost 2 different distilleries, 2 different blends, and I would 100% believe you. It is not, to me, just a simple leap. There is definitely a drastic difference between the 2. So it's hard for me to say, if you like the 8, get the 9, just because of how different they are. But if you're a Sagamore fan, go and get it. And I think it is a good pour. It's just, for me, different notes. So it's just hard to say if, someone who has tried it before would definitely get the next one. So that's my review of the Sagamore 9-year-old rye. If you're enjoying this content, before you head out, make sure you check out this video or this one. Until the next time, cheers.